نبدأ. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه أما بعد. Previously, we have taken certain articles pertaining to Mas'ala of Ilm al-Aqidah, and we have went through a couple of chapters in the book which has been written by Imam al-Muzani rahmatullahi alayhi. And Imam al-Muzani, we have mentioned, he is one of the great scholars of Imam al-Shafi'i. He's one of the right-hand men of Imam al-Shafi'i, and we have spoken about him in detail as well. From the next chapters which we're going to discuss now is the chapter which majority of the Muslimin in the modern day and the modern era differ upon. They have a lot of misconceptions, and these misconceptions have arisen because of many factors. From them is, again, Greek philosophy. Another one is al-ujma, weakening of the Arabic language. And I've mentioned, again, methodology of understanding texts, which is al-Quran wa Sunnah, in a way which is unprecedented. So basically, everyone, whether you call any firqa, any group, you call them, whichever they may be, they all claim to act upon Quran and Sunnah. Nobody says, I don't act upon Quran and Sunnah. That's like blatant, khalas, you're not a Muslim in it. But the problem comes about is the way they understand the texts. And from the chapters that have been having a lot of misconceptions and having a lot of disputes in is the chapter that pertains to the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we believe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has perfect attributes. Okay, first of all, how do I define what is an attribute? An attribute of Allah Azza wa Jal refers to the qualities or characteristics that describe and distinguish him in his nature and essence and prove his divinity, that he is Allah, he's a Lord. Then, i.e., these attributes serve to illustrate his perfection and uniqueness, differentiating him from the creation. These attributes show that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is qawiyyun, azizun, alimun, khabir, they show that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is perfect. These attributes, we have certain classifications. For us to understand them, the ulama have categorized these attributes. The first way to see these attributes or classify these attributes is to classify based on what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or his prophet has affirmed for Allah Azza wa Jal, or what they have negated for Allah Azza wa Jal. فإذن بالعربية نقول إثبات ما أثبته الله تبارك وتعالى لنفسه في كتابه وما أثبته له رسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم في سننه، وهي تدل على الكمال. تمام؟ This is how we get the what's it called صفات. تمام؟ The first classification is based on affirmation and negation. So if we were to affirm an attribute to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that he has this attribute, it should be done so through Quran wa Sunnah. There's no logic, no rationality, no rational, independent reasoning, and so on and so forth. Okay? Likewise, if we were to negate something from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, okay, that should be done so again using Quran wa Sunnah. So the first classification, based on affirmation and negation, we have the first type of sifat, which are called as-sifat al-thubutiyya, affirmative attributes. These are attributes that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has affirmed for himself in his book, or the Prophet or his Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam has described Allah in his authentic sunnah to be a part of his attribute. And they indicate the absolute perfection of Allah and include the negation of any defects. Okay? The second type of classification of attributes are sifat al-salbiyya al-manfiyya. So we negate them. For example, الظلم وما ربك بظلام للعبيد. So what is the obligation in this aspect? These are attributes that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has negated for himself in his book, either through his book or through the words of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So what we do is we affirm the polar opposite. So if we say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not zalim, what does it mean? Za'ad. So Al-wajib is that first we negate that what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has negated. On top of that, affirm the opposite, polar opposite. طيب. Now the first principle pertaining to affirmative attributes, as in sifat al-thubutiyya, is that we believe all the affirmative attributes, sifat al-thubutiyya, are kamaliyya, are perfect. They're in, have reached in absolute perfection in terms of his essence. طيب. The second principle, القاعدة الثانية here, that when it comes to affirming or negating a sifat, it should be done so by the Quran or Sunnah. فلا مجال للرأي, as in there is no room for rationality or any sort of independent reasoning. So any word that has not been used in Al-Quran or Sunnah should not be used to describe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even if it has a good meaning. Nor should we negate anything from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala without the usage of Quran or Sunnah, even if it has a bad meaning. Because if you negate negation and affirmation is to do with the attributes of Allah. And attributes of Allah is from the unseen. You understand? So basically, our knowledge pertaining to the unseen stops at what we have been informed about through the Quran or Sunnah, the divine revelation. توقيفية. تمام. Then there's no majal, there's no room to practice logic in the realm of unseen. It's the ocean without any shore. بحر لا ساحل له. تمام. Using words which has not been mentioned in the Sharia, the Quran or Sunnah, could hold many connotations. You understand? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's words, choice of words, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's words, they have isma, there's no problem with it. But you make up a word and you try to negate something from it, it might have different connotations. You understand? For example, if we use the word makan, does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has makan? Does he have, yes or no? نحن نقول لا. We don't say anything. نتوقف. ليش نتوقف? Why do we stop at this? Because we ask, مكان لم يرد في القرآن والسنة. It has not been mentioned in the Quran or Sunnah. فلذا, we are not allowed to negate or affirm any word which is not being used in the Quran. Someone can حيز, and all these words, which is not there in the Quran or Sunnah, we're not allowed to affirm nor negate. You understand? Because if we affirm, affirmation has to be done by Quran and Sunnah. Likewise, negation, even if it has a bad meaning, should be done with the Quran and Sunnah, and affirmation, even if it has a good meaning, should be done with Quran and Sunnah. You understand? If I say Allah's name is Al-Habib, lam yarid. Al-Hub, there's no problem with it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he uses the name something similar. Al-Wadud. From his sifat is Hub, no problem. But you see, if we change up these things, it's very intricate. This matters to do with unseen. Tawqifiyya, we do not exceed in it, nor we decrease in what has been mentioned. باختصار بالعربية أن أسماء الله تبارك وتعالى وصفاته توقيفيا. توقيفية نفيا وإثباتا. أي أنها لا يجوز لأحد أن يبتدئ بشيء منها من عند نفسه اجتهادا ونظرا وقياسا، إنما يتوقف على الوحي وهو القرآن والسنة. تمام؟ طيب. The third principle which we have pertaining to negative and the negated attributes is that we affirm the polar opposite. The mere negation has no benefit. فلذا, when we have an attribute, for example, لا تأخذه سنة ولا نوم. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he does not sleep, nor he gets he gets drowsy or something. This has no, a nafi should be done with إثبات الكمال الضد. That we affirm the polar opposite. Okay, what do we benefit from doing nafi, negating these two attributes? We understand Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is al-hayy wal-qayyum. So the polar opposite is al-hayy wal-qayyum. Tamam? طيب. The second classification, based on the relation to Allah's will and essence, is the second classification of sifat. So now we have a sifat. Sifat imma takuna thubutiyya, as in they're affirmative, we affirm them, or manfiyya, we negate them from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cannot oppress. So we negate them. Tamam? From a thubutiyya, sifat thubutiyya, they are again of two types. Imam, sifat al-thubutiyya are again categorized into two types. Number one, sifat al-dhatiyya, essential and permanent attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Number two, sifat al-fi'liyya al-ikhtiyariyya, as in, volicious attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What does it mean to have sifat al-dhatiyah? Essential and permanent attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are attributes that are inseparable from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As in, they exist with Allah eternally, forever, and in all circumstances. They're affirmed for Him at all times and in all states. For example, the two eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the two hands, the shin, the knowledge, the wisdom, al-hikmah wal-ilm. You cannot say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is knowledgeable at one time, is not knowledgeable at another. These are sifat al-dhatiyah, they're forever, eternal, they are affirmed for Him at all times. They're constant, they never cease to be associated with Him. Tamam? This is called sifat al-dhatiyah, and they come under sifat al-thubutiyah. Okay, so if you were to have a diagram, you have sifat what's it called? Thubutiyah wal manfiyah. تحت thubutiyah we have khabariyah wal what's it called? Wal fi'liyah. تمام? تمام. طيب, what's it called? Then we have sifat al fi'liyah. These are attributes pertaining to Allah's actions and may vary from time and circumstance. Rather, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chooses when He wants to express this attribute. For example, love. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves whenever He wants. Wherever He wants, whoever He wants. Likewise, ityan or maji. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes. وَجَاءَ رَبُّكَ وَالْمَلَكُ صَفًّا صَفًّا. Okay, when does He come? He decides to do that. For example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's nuzul. He does it in Thuluth al-Layl, in the last third of the night. He does it in Yom Arafah. And He chooses when to do. Is He always nazil? لا. الأمر ليس كذلك. تمام? So we have sifat al-fi'liyah, are attributes pertaining to Allah's actions that vary from time and circumstance. And they reflect His will, His power, and manifestation, like Him manifesting in His creation. Imam Azza wa Jal. طيب. For example, al-istiwa. Al-istiwa is sifatul fi'liyah. أما العلو والصفة ذاتية لا ينفك عن الله تبارك وتعالى بأي حال. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is عال above us at all times. أما الاستواء, when was istiwa done? After the arsh was created. تمام? Okay, and there is types of sifat who are مشتركة. هي صفة ذاتية من جهة وفعلية من جهة أخرى. مثل His ability to speak. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaking in terms of ability is صفة ذاتية. And when He speaks is صفة الفعلية. Likewise, the ability of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in terms of creation. The ability to create is صفة ذاتية. And in terms of creating, صفة الفعلية. تمام؟ طيب. These are تقسيمات pertaining to الصفات. There's more detail to it. Again, we don't want to do تعمق because there are books better for that. There are عقيدة الواسطية and so on and so forth of Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah. They speak about that. طيب. What is obligatory and compulsory upon us with regards to the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? طيب. Number one, to interpret them literally. It is essential for us to take these texts and affirm their true nature in a way that befits Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Number two, avoiding figurative interpretation, as in deviating to metaphorical meanings without knowledge. In Islam, it's like speaking about Allah without evidence. And this is haram. We cannot speak about Allah without evidence. We cannot deviate to metaphorical meanings in these sifat, these attributes. These attributes are from unseen. The haqiqah, we don't know. We just affirm how they are. We affirm the literal meaning. For us to go to metaphorical meaning, there should be qara'in. There should be some sort of, if I say sit, you will say, what does that mean? No, أول شيء يخطر في بالك, first thing that comes in your, what's it called, mind is, it means to sit, not to stand. نفس الشيء. والأمور الغيبية, you interpret them the way they are. And you do not add any metaphorical meanings. تمام. And this, metaphorical meaning, this is muharram, it's haram. Okay, this in the Quran is called tahrif. And some people use it, the word ta'wil. Ta'wil. So this is prohibited in Islam. A ta'wil, some people don't use it, the word that much, a ta'wil, because it has many connotations. A ta'wil could mean dream. A ta'wil could mean tafsir. A ta'wil could mean this. Okay, tahrif. So a tahrif is what's used in, what's it called? Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, yuharrifuna al-kalima mawadhi'ihi. Tamam? The third obligation what's called pertaining to the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is we should stay away from likening and resembling and personifying these attributes to the creation, which is called a tamthil or tashbih. For describing the essence of these attributes, which is a tashbih, is muharram, it's against Islam. ليس كمثله شيء وهو السميع البصير. Okay? With that being said, نقرأ العبارة. What's said in the, what's it called? I've explained باب الصفات. Okay? And those who have deviated in this bab are mainly الأشاعرة والكلابية والمعتزلة والجهمية وكذلك الماتريدية والفرق الكلامية. The sects that have been influenced with يعني a Greek philosophy. تمام. صفات الله جل وعلا وكلمات الله وقدرة الله ونعته وصفاته كلمات غير مخلوقات دائمات أزليات. Okay, دائمات أزليات, he's showing towards صفات الخبرية. Okay, وليست بمحدثات فتبيد. Okay, so he's specifically speaking about صفات, which one? الخبرية. تمام. ولا كان ربنا ناقصا فيزيد. جلت صفاته عن شبه صفات المخلوقين وقصرت عنه فطن الواصفين قريب بالإجابة عند السؤال بعيد بالتعزز لا ينال عال على عرشه بائن من خلقه موجود وليس بمعدو ولا بمفقود. طيب. So that's to do with الصفات. Then we have the next chapter, which is to do with الآجال. Okay, the appointed times of death. What is meant by death? The death, like if you were to define it, is the detachment and the separation of the soul from the body. So after which the realm of the unseen comes to reality. So tasting death is a part of believing in the day of judgment. So when a person dies, that's when the reality begins. It's like the transition from the delusion of this life to the reality of the next. So every living being, including Isa alayhi salam, will taste death. There's no exceptions. Okay? And yani tara, death has been written before you were born. And you'll get the exact lifespan, which yani has been written for you, no more, no less. The life, yani فيما, what's it called? So what he says over here, الآجال فيما يتعلق بال, what's it called? موت. والخلق ميتون بآجالهم عند نفاد أرزاقهم وانقطاع آثارهم. So basically alluding towards how your arzaq has been written and your death has been appointed. Tamam? So this is the first step. Like the death is the first step. Right after death, what happens is the iman فيما يتعلق بالقبر. This has three aspects. Okay, the life in the grave has three aspects. Grave is a place طبعا where the dead is buried. Okay, this there has many names like قرافة, الجدث, and all these names in العربية. طيب. The belief pertaining to the grave begins as soon as the person dies. What do I mean by that? Even if this person was not buried, the person's yani, trial in graves begins. So if someone is like his dead body is taken into like what's it called, pieces and dissolved into an acid, or let's just say his body is preserved in a hospital, or mumkin is put into a museum for 100 years, okay, or maybe he's fed to the dogs. على سبيل المثال يعني this guy, does he have the what's it called فتن what's it called, the answers? Yes. Because why? It's from the unseen, the masail متعلقة, like we believe everyone gets the trial of the grave even if he's not buried. He drowns, لا عبرة به, because it's a matter of unseen how it happens. Okay, تمام. The first thing that happens as soon as you get to the grave is the squeezing and the crushing of the grave. Okay, and the ulama, they have differed. And why? And why is this person? And this is يعم للجميع, by the way. It's general for everyone. The prophets عليه الصلاة والسلام, the kids, the like Muslimin, kuffar, everyone. Okay, there's no exception. They say it's because of the longing and yearning of the earth. Yani, we are being created from earth, from like the clay. Yeah. So just people are to the earth as children are to their mother. So whenever it leaves without yani approval. Whenever it leaves with approval, the earth embraces the what's called dead body with joy and squeezes it, gives a light squeeze. Amma the one who has been yani transgressing and been away, and it squeezes with the squeeze of anger. So the crushing, it'll be yani strong based on how you were in the earth. Understand? Again, this is للجميع حتى الأنبياء. Okay? طيب. After this follows the trials of the grave, the question answering, like the examination. And this will be done by the two angels, Munkar wa Nakir. And they will come in a state which is very horrifying. And they will come with like in the blacks, like in color of black with blue eyes. هكذا رواه الترمذي نقله الترمذي. And it's going to be very scary. Okay? And what's going to be asked is you're going to be asked about who your Lord is and who's your prophet and what was the religion you adhered to. Okay? Failing to answer any of these questions will result in severe consequences. Next thing is who's going to be asked. Everyone is going to be asked with the exception of the prophets. So the Prophet ﷺ will not be asked about who's your Lord. Okay? As well as insane people who died. Okay? And kids who died, like people who died below the age of puberty. These people will not be asked in, in their graves. With as opposed to ضغطة. الضغطة is للجميع. The crushing is for everyone. تمام. The third aspect which the author didn't mention due to brevity is that based on these answers, your grave will be a garden of Jannah or the pit of hellfire. تمام. What did he say? القبر ثم هم بعد ضغطة في القبور مساءلون. مساءلون as in the fitna, the امتحان القبر, فتنة القبر. So he has many like the سؤال القبر, امتحان القبر, فتنة القبر. All of them allude towards one meaning, which is the question answering of Munkar wa Nakir. تمام. طيب. Then we have the chapter which is to do with the resurrection and reckoning. These are again all of these chapters which death and so on and so forth come under the belief فيما يتعلق بيوم القيامة. Okay? Resurrection al-ba'ath, this refers to the event when the creation is brought back to life, with the souls returned to the body after the second trumpet has been blown by which angel? Which angel? إسرافيل. جميل. So نفخة السورة الثانية. تمام. This marks the beginning of the day of judgment. So the first trumpet by Israfil is blown to seize life of all creation. It's called the Nafkhatu Sa'q. And the second trumpet is blown to resurrect all of them. ونفخ في الصور فصعق من في السماوات والأرض إلا من شاء الله ثم نفخ فيه أخرى فإذا هم قيام ينظرون. Then comes after the nafkha. Okay, when everyone is resurrected, the mas'ala of al-mawqif, where everyone is going to be standing. This refers to the position of servants on the day of judgment, where they will be standing before Allah, awaiting for al-hisab. They're waiting for accountability. It's a moment of great anticipation and anxiety before the hisab begins. So we have أولاً البعث ثم الموقف ثم الحساب. تمام. وإذا الحساب, hisab is the reckoning. This refers to the questioning and reckoning and assessment of a person's deeds. This has two levels. الحساب اليسير والحساب العسير. الحساب اليسير refers to the questioning and reckoning, okay, where a person's deeds is presented to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and he's like, look, I have mercy upon you, go ahead, just move, no problem. And I have mercy upon you, I won't see. So if that's the case, then you're free. If your hisab is yasir, even if you have sins, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with his mercy, he'll let you go. But hisab al-asir is when a person is interrogated, is taken into account as to what has been mentioned. And Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam says, من نوقش عذب من نوقش حسابه فقد عذب. Yani if your accountability is going to be, if you're going to be interrogated by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even if you're from the salihin and righteous, you're going to be definitely punished, because there are things you can never be grateful for. But al-hisab, again, is of two types. Al-yasir, if you have mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Hisabun asir is the scrutiny, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala interrogates and asks every single question. And if that's the case, then you'll be punished. Tamam? Right after al-hisab, okay, the records of the deeds, okay, are going to be distributed. The deeds which have, like, all the deeds which you have committed in the dunya will be distributed amongst the people, okay? And the true believers will receive these records in the right hand, as opposed to the rest, they'll be receiving in the left hand forcefully. Tamam? Taib. Right after that comes the mas'ala of mizan, where a person's deeds, he himself, okay, and his books will be recorded and weighed. So al-mizan, again, is a scale. It's a huge scale and very precise scale, very daqiq, okay? And this scale, three things will be placed in it. Number one, your deeds. Okay, your good deeds on one side, bad deeds on the side. Another thing that will be placed is yourself. You yourself will be placed as a weight. And they say that even a person who will be very fat, if he doesn't have Iman, he won't weigh anything. Based on your Iman, you're going to be weighed. Okay? Number three, the books of records. Certain books, okay, they have the kalima tawheed, tawheed safiya. They have, what's it called? They have tawheed safi, which is like kalima la ilaha illallah, and that will outweigh many of the bad deeds. These three things will be recorded in al-mizan. There are other details pertaining to Day of Judgment. What's it called? The scholar left out. You know the sirat. Everyone will pass the sirat. The kuffar, everyone. When the kuffar comes, the Jahannam will like snatch them down. Like they can't pass it. And the mu'minun, they'll differ. Those who have high iman, they'll pass like a lightning. And then based on that, each one will go slower, slower, and slower. And certain mu'minun, they'll be snatched as well and thrown into Jahannam. There's another مسألة والله because I'm not sure if you guys like studied فيما يتعلق بمستقر الأرواح. تعلم هذه المسألة شيخ؟ مستقر الأرواح. You guys know about that? Where the souls are going to be locked up. And they say like certain souls, as soon as after the questioning, okay, they go to what's it called, Jannah, which is the souls of Anbiya and the Shuhada. And certain souls, تعرف what's it called, بئر البراهوت in Yemen. Okay, this masala, if you guys are interested in like what's it called, going to high level aqidah, what's it called, they speak about how certain souls of kuffar, they get locked up in there. فلذا the ulama in fiqh, they speak you're not allowed to do wudu from there. It's makruh to do it from them. Al-Minhaj speaks about it in Shafi'iyya. كذلك bigger books of Shafi'iyya. Ibn al-Qayyim speaks about it in Kitab al-Ruh. كذلك Ibn Rajab speaks about this in, I guess, تخويف من النار. الله أعلم. طيب. He says البعث والنشور والحساب وبعد البلا منشورون, as in after death. Yeah. البلا, وما معنى البلا؟ ما معنى البلا؟ بلا, as in not بلا, like بلا over here means when they become bones. Okay, not like, okay. وبعد البلا منشورون ويوم القيامة لربهم محشورون ولدى العرض عليه محاسب, يدل على الحساب بحضرة الموازين ونشر صحف الدواوين أحصاه الله ونسوه في يوم كان مقداره 50,000 سنة لو كان غير الله الحاكم بين خلقه لكنه الله يلي الحكم بينهم بعدله بمقدار القائلة في الدنيا وهو أسرع الحاسبين كما بدأه لهم من شقاوة وسعادة يومئذ يعودون فريق في الجنة وفريق في السعير. تمام. فيما يتعلق باليوم الإيمان بيوم القيامة. And the tatimma, the completion of that is that once you're safe, خلاص, you'll enter Jannah. Yeah, before that there's Hawd. Everyone will drink Hawd to get refreshed and so on and so forth, and they'll enter Jannah. Jannah won't open until Shafa'atul Udhma, which is by the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم. لذا ما المناسبة, we have the ayah, yeah, what's it called, فتحت أبوابها قال لهم خزنتها, what's it called, ألم يأتكم رسل منكم يتلون عليكم آيات ربكم وينذرونكم لقاء يومكم هذا قالوا بلى. And then in the second ayah of Surah Zumar, it says وفتحت أبوابها وقال لهم خزنتها سلام عليكم طبتم فادخلوها خالدين. What's the مناسبة of wow? It says يدل على المهلة. It shows that the gates of Jannah will not open until the Prophet ﷺ comes, and they will open it for him, then only people will enter. This wow shows يدل على المهلة. تمام? It's not for no reason. Okay, طيب. جميل. طيب. الجنة والنار, majority of the scholars, طبعا, we believe, all of them, the consensus of the scholars is that Jannah and Nar, they're created before the creation. Okay? On top of that, they exist. Currently, they exist. As opposed to Al-Jahmi and the philosophers and so on and so forth. مشكلة يأتي, there's certain qawl which has been attributed to Ibn Taymiyyah rahmatullah alayhi, who they say that Ibn Taymiyyah rahmatullah alayhi believes that the punishment of hellfire will come to an end. And this has been wrongly attributed to Ibn Taymiyyah rahmatullah alayhi. Rather, the person who says that is Ibn al-Qayyim rahmatullah alayhi. Ibn al-Qayyim rahmatullah alayhi in his Al-Hadi wal-Arwah and Wabil al-Sayyib, he strongly believes that nobody will be in Jahannam forever, even the kuffar. Everybody eventually will enter Jannah. And this حقيقة يخالف فيما القرآن ظاهر القرآن ظاهر النصوص القرآن, all of them go against it. We have plenty of ayat, whether you say in Surah Nisa, in the 6th juz, what's it called, خالدين فيها أبدا, what's it called, in the 6th juz at the end, second last page. Likewise Surah Al-Ahzab, likewise Surah Al-Jinn. All of them, even ayat which are a bit implicit. For example, in Surah Ma'idah, وَلَهُمْ عَذَابٌ مُقِيمٌ. Yeah? All these ayat يدل على that the punishments of hellfire are eternal. And the madhab of Imam Ibn al-Qayyim, he erred in it. He made an error. مذهب ضعيف يخالف تقريبا إجماع الأمة. Because he believes everyone will exit at the end. هذا غريب شوي. تمام؟ طيب. The best book, again, if you want to go back to the Na'im of Jannah, go back to Ibn al-Qayyim's book of Al-Hadi al-Arwah. Al-Hadi al-Arwah. Hadi al-Arwah, wallahi, kitab, he brings every single thing you'll get in Jannah, in detail. More than 60 chapters, to be honest. طيب. He says, وَأَهْلُ الْجَنَّةِ يَوْمَئِذٍ فِي الْجَنَّةِ يَتَنَعَّمُونَ وَبِسُنُوفِ اللَّذَّاتِ يَتَلَذَّذُونَ بِأَفْضَلِ الْكَرَامَاتِ يُحْبَرُونَ. The next ni'mah, or the belief we have, is to do with belief in seeing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Day of Judgment. Imam, this has two aspects. First thing we believe is that we believe that the servants of Allah will not see Allah in this day, in the worldly life. So basically, the belief فيما يتعلق برؤية الله تبارك وتعالى has two aspects. Number one, refuting or negating the possibility of seeing Allah in this worldly life. Okay? No one can see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this life, as He's beyond comprehension of the creation. لا تدرك الأبصار وهو يدرك الأبصار. طيب. What about dreams? Can you see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Some scholars say, and there's a hadith in Musnad Ahmad, which is Sahih, that a dream might be an exception, be shart that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala came in a form which is not His haqiqah, not in His real form. But certain people, certain Sahaba saw Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but not in His real form. But they saw some nur. Okay? But again, it's not in His real form. Because if it was in real form, then we know the haqiqah of sifat, how they are. فهمتم? This is one of the exceptions, some of the ulama say. Number two, what we believe is the faith. We have faith that we will see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala after death. Okay? And this type of, ru'ya is categorized into two. Okay? The first type of ru'ya is ru'yatul in'ami wa tashrif. The second type of ru'ya is ru'yatul iqrari wa ta'rif. Tamam? Let me just translate them properly, exactly. Ru'yatul in'ami wa tashrif, okay, is the sighting of blessing and honor. So it's a blessing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will grant the believers in paradise to see Him. And when they see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they'll feel the ladha and the joy and the spiritual fulfillment that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us to see His beautiful self. هذا من لذات الدنيا, من نعيم الدنيا. من نعيم الآخرة, لذات الآخرة. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessing you to see Him. And then there'll be a ru'ya which is of iqrar wa ta'rif, which occurs in Yawm al-Qiyamah, in Arasat Yawm al-Qiyamah, in the Hashar, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be angry like no other day. And He will come in front of people. The kuffar will try to do sujood, but they are not able to. Okay? And then they will be forced into sujood because they're so scared now what's going to happen. But because of this, acknowledging His sovereignty and stuff, that's the ru'ya they'll have. But it'll not be of in'am. They'll not have any raha. They'll be rather petrified with that ru'ya. Tamam? Many of the sects, they say that it's impossible to see Allah absolutely. هذا غير صحيح. Okay? Rather, we can see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala after death. Tamam? Next, we have a chapter that pertains to the obedience of Islamic rulers. and the prohibition of revolting against them. Our belief in this chapter, which we have, that the Islamic ruler, not a Muslim ruler, has some rights. From them, number one, we obey him in that which coincides with Islam. So if he says something that contradicts Islam, we don't obey him. If he says, celebrate National Day, this, that, we don't have ayat like that. We don't obey him. Number two, we advise them, but in confidence, in secrecy. We do not shame them, go and, speak against them, and so on and so forth. Number three, we make dua for them that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides them and makes them, rectifies them. Number four, we do not revolt against them, even if they're oppressors and they're sinners, and so on and so forth. Even if they have all sorts of sin. They drink khamar, they do zina, we don't revolt against them. Tamam? Tayyib. The only exception to that is if they commit outright kufr, and this kufr has been attested by a group of learned Muslims. So they committed kufrun bawah. This kufr has no, لا يحتمل أي احتمال. يعني it is kufr, خلاص. This guy says, I don't believe in Allah. No, we can خلاص. No, maybe he believes in Allah. No, there is no ihtimal. Okay? So what does the Imam say? He says, طاعة الأئمة والأمراء ومنع الخروج عليهم. وطاعة لأولي الأمر فيما كان عند الله مرضيا واجتناب ما كان عند الله مسخطا وترك الخروج عند تعديهم وجورهم وتوبة إلى الله عز وجل كيف يعطف بهم على رعيتهم. طيب حتى ترى the ulama on the past, they used to make dua for the rulers, but they never used to like him. حتى سفيان الثوري, Harun al-Rashid came والله إني لا أحبك في الله. Said, نعم وإني لا أبغضك في الله. You love me for the sake of Allah and I hate you for the sake of Allah. مع ذلك I will not go against your any rights. Muslim ruler has certain rights. تمام. طيب. Next مسألة is from refraining from a takfir. Refraining from مسألة takfir of Ahlul Qibla. Okay? And a person, if he's known to be a Muslim, and we're certain that this guy is on the deen of Islam, we do not take him out of the fold of Islam, even if he's known to commit major sins day and night. He commits every single sin day and night. We do not kick him or throw him out of the folds of Islam unless there is a clear-cut evidence that he has committed disbelief. And if there's chances or ihtimalat, we still do not take him out of fold of Islam. There's certain conditions that needs to be fulfilled. There's certain conditions that needs to be fulfilled for us to throw a Muslim out of the fold of Islam. Okay? Number one, another thing is, what is a major sin? What's considered as a major sin in Islam? You guys know? Huh? Shirk, that's one of them. Mithal, ما هو ضابط? What's the ضابط? كيف؟ there's so much ma'asi, so much sins there. Which one is major, which one is major? No. طيب, I'll give you some qawaid, okay? They say any sin that has a legislated legal punishment, that has a hadd shar'i في الدنيا, is a major sin. Number two, any sin, any action that has been described to be an action of shaitan is a major sin. Any person who has been described to be like a shaitan, is a major sin. Any action which Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam or Allah curses is a major sin. For example, tattooing. Okay, طيب. Anything Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that it will entail his ghadab, his wrath, is a major sin, and so on and so forth. Tamam? So that is to do with major sins. In this mas'ala, he also speaks about bid'at, innovations and heresies. Okay? Okay. So what's legislated as well is that we stay away from those who innovate and act upon heresies. Okay? What is a heresy? What is an innovation? There's many mustalahat and many ways to define it. Number one, worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in an unprecedented way, in ways that's not prescribed by him. Another definition is heresies in the religion are those things, actions or statements or beliefs that contradict the actions, beliefs and the statements of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his rightly guided successors. Okay, so this, again, heresies can occur in beliefs as well as in actions. Based on this, we can categorize al-bid'at, heresies, into two types. Number one, heresies in beliefs. الابتداء or البدعات في الاعتقادات. تمام? Which occurs due to opposing the orthodox methodology in understanding Quran and Sunnah. So everyone who's a Muslim, they say, we believe in Quran and Sunnah. Nobody says we don't believe in Quran and Sunnah. But the problem comes, and we differ from the heretics, is in their methodology in understanding the Quran and Sunnah. That's where we differ. Okay, that's the first type of al-bid'ah. This bid'ah fil i'tiqadat, okay, can be categorized into two. Okay? Either it's bid'atul mufassaqa or bid'atul mukaffara. Okay? Al-bid'atul mukaffara is an innovation or heresy that leads you to be rendered as a disbeliever. As in you committed this bid'ah and you have been thrown out of the, what's it called, fold of Islam. And this can only occur in al-i'tiqadat. Tamam. Second type is bid'atul mufassaqa. Al-bid'ah which will lead you to a state of sinfulness. But it does not take you out of the fold of Islam. Okay? Rather, you're seen as a deviated person. Okay? And you're a deviant. Okay? But what happens is your mu'amala, how we treat you, is a bit different. Like we won't make you the Imam of a masjid. We won't mix with you, intermingle with you. Why? Because if you intermingle with these people, they will give you shubuhat, they'll give you doubts. They say, like example, there's a saying in Arabic, we say, كثرة المساس تفقد الإحساس. For example, if I were to pinch you, you'll feel the pain of pinch in the first second, yeah? But after a while, bit by bit, it'll be normal, not feel any pain. نفس الشيء. These heresies, if you surround yourself with Ahlul Bid'ah and Ahwa, people of desires and innovations, heresies, bit by bit, it will seep into your brain and you'll start getting desensitized to them. And after a while, you'll think that it's a khilaf mu'tabar, it's just a difference of opinion. After that, you start saying maybe it has a wedge. And we have seen this. Shahadna bil kathir, those who have been intermingling with these heresies. طيب. Second type of al-bid'ah is to do with al-a'mal. Okay, this includes, number one, establishment of a form of worship that has no basis in Islam. Okay, so completely new act of worship, and we say this is ibadah. مثل الصوفية, they're doing Mawlid Nabawi. تمام. Number two, adding an established act of worship. So we have salawat. Let's just say salawat is what's called mashru'ah. We have no problem with salah. Is salah something bad? Do you have any problem with salah? We're worshiping Allah. But let's say we make now 6 times a day. We'll pray 6 times a day. From today, we'll pray 6 times a day. Praying is something that's good. What's the problem? Why don't we add a new, what's it called, a unit to it? هذا بدعة كذلك. تمام? Number 3, designating a specific time or place or number or a virtue to an established act of worship. For example, is reading Quran problematic? If someone says, read Surah Al-Baqarah 50 times to get married. We don't have problem with reading Quran at all. No problem, we'll read 100 times. But if we add number, or let's say read Quran as soon as you enter Masjid Bukhari, you have to do it. يعني adding a wasf من حيث المكان أو الزمان أو العدد أو الفضل. If I say reading Surah Al-Yasin will get you rich, or like Surah Al-Waqi'ah will get you rich. Yeah, we will say we don't have problem with Surah Al-Waqi'ah. Wallahi, I would want to read this surah day and night. Okay? Problem comes if we were to add a virtue. So again, al-bid'ah fil amal is of 3 types. Imma we make a amal which has no basis aslan, and that's easy to reject. Number 2 is where people intermingle. Okay, they add or like change the manner of performing an act of worship. Number 3, designating a space, time, or what's it called, place or virtue or a number with regards to an act of worship. طيب. Next we have, let's read the فقرة. إمساك عن تكفير أهل القبلة والإمساك عن تكفير أهل القبلة والبراءة منهم فيما أحدثوا ما لم يبتدعوا ضلالا. So over here he's talking about bid'atun mukaffara. So like why is he talking about staying away from takfir? ما لم يبتدعوا ضلالا, he's talking about bid'ah al-mukaffara. That's only when we can do takfir, yeah? فمن ابتدع منهم ضلالا كان على أهل القبلة خارجا ومن الدين مارقا ويتقرب إلى الله بالبراءة منه ويهجر ويحتقر. He's like, and he leave them, boycott them, rather diminish their status. Okay, وتجتنب غدته فهي أعدى من غدة الجرب. طيب. The next مسألة is to next مسألة is pertaining to the companions. Okay, first of all, what is the definition of companions? The best definition is given by Ibn Hajar in Nukhbat al-Fikr. He says, companions are the people who met the Prophet ﷺ. It's better to say the word met instead of see, because their companions were blind, okay? After his prophethood in the state of Islam. As in, while they were Muslims. So anyone who met قبل النبوة, before the Prophet ﷺ was sent the revelation, he's not a prophet, he's not a companion. Likewise, if someone met after the nubuwah, but he was not a Muslim, he's not a companion as well. So again, people who met the Prophet ﷺ بشرط after his prophethood, and شرط الثاني, that he was, the companion himself was a Muslim that time and passed away on that state. Okay, this person is a companion. طيب. So the best and the most virtuous amongst the Sahaba, categorically as a group, I'm giving as groups, okay, right now. Asnaf, then I'll go to individually, okay? And number one, the Muhajirun. Those who has performed al-Hijrah and migrated from Makkah al-Mukarramah to Medina al-Munawwarah. Okay. The second are the Ansar, the people, residents of Medina, after the Bay'ah. Okay. Third one are those who went for the Treaty of Hudaybiyah in Fath Makkah. Yeah, the conquest of Mecca, those who went there and embraced Islam, and those who were there, they're the third virtues in terms of group. The fourth one are the children who saw the Prophet ﷺ. Okay, these are categorically the best. Okay, now let's speak about individually. The best amongst them is Abu Bakr, bila shak wala rayb. Second is Umar radiallahu anh. Third is Uthman, and then Ali, and after that comes the promised 10, like Zubair ibn Awwam, Abu Ubaidah, Ibn Amr ibn Jarrah, and Sa'ad ibn Waqqas, and the promised 10 people of Jannah. Then comes in rank every single muhajir who has participated in al-Badr. Then after them, the muhajirun of the Badr, the Badris, come every single individual that has participated in al-Badr from al-Ansar. Okay, and then after that, there's a whole difference of opinion who are the next best. Okay, there are certain qualities and characteristics of companions. Number one, they all are morally upright. Udul, thiqa. There's no shak in their in their trustworthiness. If they say something of the religion, we take it. No doubt, they can never lie. They don't do these things. They don't play with the religion. Okay, they're people who genuinely fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Number two, they are people with genuine hearts. فَلِذَا Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose them for hidayah. The message of Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam was one. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose the best of hearts for getting the suhbah of Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam and giving them this maqam. They have certain rights upon us. These companions, Ridwanullahi alayhim ajma'een, have certain rights upon us. From them, we love them. This is part of our iman. Loving them will increase us in our iman. Number two, we should revere them and respect them and speak good of them. Number three, we implore mercy and seek forgiveness for them. Number four, we guard our tongues and be really careful in indulging matters or delving into matters in which they differed upon. So we don't criticize or scrutinize either one of them. Whether what happened between Muawiyah and Ali and so on and so forth, we have to be very careful about these things. Tayyib, and whoever speaks ill of any of the companions is in great danger. His iman is in great danger. The act of it is al-fisq, and it can lead to al-kufr. La siyama if it's with Abu Bakr and Umar. La siyama if it's with Abu Bakr and Umar. Imam, let's read what he says. القول في الصحابة ويقال بفضل خليفة رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أبي بكر الصديق. What's Abu Bakr's name? Abdullah ibn Abi Quhafa. Who's Abi Quhafa? Uthman. Abdullah ibn Uthman. طيب. هو أفضل الخلق وأخيرهم بعد النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. نثني بعده بالفاروق. الفاروق is Umar. Why is he named Faruq? يفرق بين الحق والباطل. He differentiates between what's right and wrong. وهو عمر بن الخطاب رضي الله عنه. فهما وزيراه. They are the two ministers of what's it called? the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم وضجيعاه في قبره. Why is it ضجيعاه? As in they're being buried, one to the right, one to the left. Abu Bakr to the right, Umar to the left. And in Yawm al-Qiyamah, Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam is going to be the first person to be resurrected, and he'll pull with his right hand Abu Bakr and left hand يعني Umar. طيب ونثلث بذي النورين. Okay, after that we go to the, what's it called? Why is Uthman's name ذي النورين? You guys know? Because he married the two what's it called, daughters of Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, Uthman ibn Affan. ثم بذي الفضل والتقى علي بن أبي طالب رضي الله عنهم أجمعين. These are the خلفاء الراشدين. ثم الباقين من العشرة الذين أوجب لهم رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم الجنة. I spoke about that. The 10 after them in ranks is what's it called, the 10 عشر المبشرة. ونخلص لكل رجل منهم من المحبة بقدر الذي أوجب لهم رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم من التفضيل. ثم لسائر أصحابه من بعدهم رضي الله عنهم أجمعين. ويقال بفضلهم ويذكرون بمحاسن أفعالهم. ونمسك عن الخوض فيما شجر بينهم فهم خيار أهل الأرض بعد نبيهم عليهم الصلاة والسلام. ارتضاهم الله لنبيه وجعلهم أنصارا لدينه فهم أئمة الدين وأعلام المسلمين رضي الله عنهم أجمعين. The next mas'ala is to do with praying behind the Islamic rulers. Praying behind the Islamic rulers is something that's legislated and should be done so even if the Islamic ruler is known to be wicked. So, يعني, for example, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud prayed behind Al-Walid ibn Uqba. And Walid ibn Uqba used to drink يعني khamar day and night. He used to drink alcohol day and night. Okay? حتى he was such a jahil, when he led the Salat al-Fajr, he read 4 rak'at. And Abdullah ibn Mas'ud was like, what's going on? Does this guy even know what's going on? Like, he's leading Salah and he doesn't even know that Salat al-Fajr is 2 rak'at. مع ذلك, it's legislated for us to pray behind the Islamic rulers. And كما فرقت لك, يعني there's difference between Islamic rulers and Muslim rulers in the first chapter. Okay? طيب, likewise, Abdullah ibn Amr, he prayed even Hajjaj ibn Yusuf. And we know the criminal offenses that Hajjaj has committed. يعني, I don't know if the history can forgive and forget that. Next, he mentions a mas'ala فيما يتعلق برخص. The reason being is in that time, okay, there were firaq, okay, they were very متشددين. They exaggerated in some certain masail. They said that taking rukhas given by Allah is not permissible. For example, shortening prayers, doing iftar, like breaking the what's called fast while traveling. They would say this is a big sin. And they would say don't do it, and it's a sin, and if you do it intentionally and stuff, so you might even go out of the fold of Islam. So there were certain exaggerations. فلذا Imam al-Muzani, according to his time, he had to mention this mas'ala, which is to do with قصر الصلاة. That's the reason why he mentioned, okay? قصر الصلاة والاختيار بين الصيام والإفطار في السفر. وقصر الصلاة في الأسفار والتخيير بين الصيام والإفطار في الأسفار إن شاء صام وإن شاء أفطر. طيب, what's better to do? What's it called? Iftar or to hold to imsak? If you're traveling, iftar, huh? What's it called? عندكم what's the حكم? طيب اي نعم. طيب, في خلاف في هذه المسألة بين المذاهب. الحنابلة يقولون الإفطار is أولى والأفضل. خلاف الشافعية and other madhahib, they say, what's it called? If you're capable, it's better to do imsak. Because that's the asal. براءة الذمة. It's أقرب إلى براءة الذمة. Like, you won't be, if you fast later and break your fast later, if you break your fast now and plan to make it up later, you might be faced with any certain hardships and كذا. طيب, you have a question now? No? Yeah. No. No. نعم. فيما يتعلق بالإفطار, when to do it, how to do it, where to do it, there's تفاصيل, by the way. If you go after ظهر, before ظهر, you travel amidst the day, المسائل كلها تختلف. The حكم is different. Certain times not allowed to do iftar. For example, من تحايل and all these things not permissible. There's many تفاصيل فيما يتعلق بالإفطار. طيب. Then he says اجتماع أئمة الهدى الماضين على هذه المقالة. He says what he has mentioned طبعا is something that is agreed upon by consensus. He didn't mention مسائل that the scholars differ upon. There are certain masail i'tiqad the scholars differ upon, but they're far'iyya. For example, did Prophet ﷺ see Allah? Can you see Allah in your dream? And all these masail, I've spoken about it. What did I say? Can you see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in your dream? The answer is yes. What's it called? According to Ibn Mas'ud in Musnad. Yeah, but you won't see him in the like real form. And certain masail daqiqa jiddan. These masail, he didn't say it. Rather, he says everything that the scholars in his time of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, who are on the orthodox religion and orthodox methodology of Salaf, they believe in. So he says, هذه مقالات وأفعال اجتمع عليها الماضون الأولون من أئمة الهدى بتوفيق الله اعتصم بها التابعون قدوة ورضا وجانبوا التكلف فيما كفوا فسددوا بعون الله ووفقوا لم يرغبوا عن الاتباع فيقصروا ولم يجاوزوه تزيدا فيعتدوا. So they didn't add anything to this i'tiqad, or they didn't remove anything from this i'tiqad. They kept it how it is, preserved this عقيدة الصافية. طيب فنحن بالله واثقون وعليه متوكلون وإليه في اتباع آثارهم راغبون. Then he goes on to certain advices, okay? And these advices which he gives, okay, are some of them revolving around the 5 pillars of Islam. And not only that, he gives you advices in certain obstacles you might have. Certain people, they want to change themselves and get closer to Allah. But every time they try, they just get back to their sins. And they keep having hard time. And he'll give you the reasons why, okay? He says, فهذا شرح السنة. This is explaining the aqidah of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. تحريت كشفها وأوضحتها فمن وفقه الله للقيام بما أبنته مع معونته له بالقيام على أداء فرائضه بالاحتياط في النجاسات. First thing he says that is to preserve the salawat that which has been made obligatory. And what does it mean to preserve? Is to offer them in the first time, okay, not delay them, okay. Number 2 is to be careful and avoid impurities in your body and in your garments, okay? Because it can be a reason for you to be receiving the punishment of the grave, or it may even entail your prayers not to be accepted. فلذا, he's saying that you have to be careful about these impurities, because it could be an obstacle between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Certain people, they don't even know, like they use the washroom, they pull their pants up quick. They don't know istinja, no nothing. Their pants are filled with pee drops, and they have beards. للأسف, they're, what's it called? They're praying, and none of their prayers are getting accepted. And they're like, why am I taking, wallahi, the riba is wajib, we have to take mortgage, we have to do this, we have to, and then you'll be like, and they're like, why is my children not obeying me? Ya akhi, start seeing your like ibadat properly. Wallahi, what's it called? If you want to fix yourself, islah al-nafs, start with tahara. Number 2, start with your food which you eat. Now he's going to mention the food and stuff. Okay, then he says, okay, وإسباغ الطهارة على الطاعات, as in make sure you perform your wudu and tahara perfectly, making sure it's complete. Okay, so many people, they don't know what's the, like, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has legislated for us to do ghusl and wash our face, hands and legs. Okay, some people, they just do masah, and some people have no clue what to do, how to do wudu properly. And they are struggling, literally. They are good people, they wish to change, but للأسف, because of lack of knowledge, they are struggling. Okay, فلذا, he's giving you nasaih that's going to be an obstacle. If you don't preserve them, it's going to be an obstacle between you and Allah. Okay, then he goes on to say, وأداء صلوات على الاستطاعات وإيتاء الزكاة على أهل الجدات. Says giving the excess wealth, which will increase and purify your wealth in return, which is to give zakat. And zakat, we know, are 2 types, zakat al-mal and zakat al-fitr. طيب, this zakat, طبعا, is the filth. It's called the excess filth of your wealth. فلذا, it's not legislated for you to give to the family of Prophet ﷺ. Prophet ﷺ never used to take from zakat or sadaqat because it's from the filth of the wealth. You understand? So you have to give this filth away and cleanse your wealth and make sure that it can increase and get barakah by giving it away. Remove this filth, otherwise this filth will contaminate all the other wealth and will decrease the barakah. Number 5 is to perform Hajj if you're capable. What does it mean to be capable? Physical and financially capable. If someone is rich and he has money, there's khilaf. What should he do? Should he do niyaba and so on and so forth? As-sahih that he does niyaba. على كل, what's it called? He's capable, okay? And then he says fasting the entire month of Ramadan if you're physically able. Okay, what he says? What did he say? والحج على أهل الجدة والاستطاعات وصيام شهر لأهل الصحات وخمس صلوات سنها رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. Okay, which we spoke about. And then he goes on to say صلاة الوتر كل ليلة, praying witr every night, as it's one of the most emphasized sunnah, and leaving off is disliked. Leaving off emphasized sunnah in Islam is disliked, by the way. It's not the same as leaving of sunnah. Leaving of any sunnah is not disliked. Okay, if someone does not do sunnah, but emphasize sunnahs, sunnah rawatib and so on and so forth, is disliked in Islam. Understand? From them al-witr. Rather, certain scholars, they went to mas'ala of يعني that witr is wajib. From them al-Hanafiyya. Rather, Ibn Taymiyyah and Ishaq ibn Rahawayh, okay, or Rahawayh, there's two ways to say it, yeah? Okay, what's it called? They say, على أهل القرآن it's wajib to perform witr. لا يليق لأحد أن يترك الوتر. Especially if he's from the righteous. Certain people, للأسف, we claim that we know aqeedah and so on and so forth, but certain people don't have no ihtimam to do with any of the sunnah. And even the fard they play is as if like they have no interest in praying. يعني الصلوات يكون لابد, you have to have some sort of نشاط. فلذا you would see certain things, you know, when Nabi alayhi salatu said to do sujood, you spread your hands and so on and so forth. You know what's the sabab? The illah, the ulama say, is to show that you're energetic while performing this ibadat. He keeps on going, he says وَرَكَعَتَا الْفَجْرِ, okay, to perform the 2 raka'at al-fajr. And the sunnah of performing these fajr is to do khafif, to do it quick. And what's mashru' is you pray surah al-kafirun and surah al-ikhlas, and quick, do it quick. Sifat al-ijza, as in you don't do you do sifat subhana rabbi al-tasbih once, subhana rabbi al-a'la once, and do it quick, finish it off quick. That's the sunnah. The sunnah is fil ittiba'. So whatever the Prophet ﷺ does, we do it. We don't add upon it, exceed, like we don't bring our own spices. Tamam. He keeps on going. وصلاة الفطر والنحر, as in adha, صلاة what's it called, Eid al-Adha, the salawat of the Eidan. وصلاة كسوف الشمس والقمر إذا نزل وصلاة الاستسقاء متى وجب. These are salawat which are emphasized. Even in what's it called, the fiqh, in kutub al-fiqh, they mention this. And they mention from starting from what's called the salawat which are non-obligatory, to start with these, all these mentioned, whatever he has mentioned, yeah. واجتناب المحارم, and avoiding and staying away from any sort of means that's going to make you fall into haram. Likewise, what's it called, والاحتراز من النميمة والكذب والغيبة, staying away from backbiting and gossiping, lying, anything that's going to tarnish the image of someone else. Why? ترى المعاصي, they are of 2 types. إما it's from حقوق الرب or حقوق الله or حقوق العباد. If it's with حقوق Allah, it's easy. You just ask forgiveness, ask tawbah, you will not repeat it again. أمر طيب, يعني أمر سهل. Okay? And if it's with حقوق العباد, the mas'ala does not end by just mere forgiveness. You have to apologize if you have tarnished and breached someone's right. You understand? So it becomes a little bit complicated. فلذا he says, don't get yourself involved in other people's rights. You understand? Then he says, وَأَنْ يُقَالْ عَلَى اللَّهِ مَا لَا يُعْلَمْ. Okay? What's it called? And not to, when you're possessed with Islamic questions and so, not to speak in matters of Islam, except that you have itqan and you have ilm in it, okay? And not to answer a question if you're not certain with it. كل هذه كبائر محرمات. All this is major sins, and they're absolutely forbidden and prohibited. And likewise, he goes on to say, وَالتَّحَرِّي فِي الْمَكَاسِبِ, you have to be very careful about what you're earning and the food you consume and the clothes you wear, all of which will indirectly result in you having tawfiq, and likewise your dua to be accepted. Certain people make dua day and night, none of them are getting accepted, and they're like, why? And you shuf, like, there are certain things, khutuwat, before you make dua. Check your tahara, check your, what's it called, food you eat. Hatta the Salaf were so careful, they wouldn't go to other people. If they know that person's rizq is haram, they wouldn't eat from them, even a glass of water. If they had shubha, like, I'm not sure, I'm doubtful, they wouldn't drink. This is, if you want your children to be pious, someone they are like, and yourself, you want to have self-rectification, start with these things. Imam, he says, وَتَحَرِّي فِي الْمَكَاسِبِ وَالْمَطَاعِمِ وَالْمَحَارِمِ وَالْمَشَارِبِ وَالْمَلَابِسِ وَاجْتِنَابُ الشَّهَوَاتِ فَإِنَّهَا دَاعِيَةٌ لِلرُّكُوبِ الْمُحَرَّمَاتِ. So these things can lead you to muharramat. Someone who eats haram, they're going to always have shahwa of doing haram. Yeah? And if you're someone who's eating tayyibat, you're going to always have nashat to do qiyam. Certain, wallahi, I've seen, okay, Abdul Aziz bin Raji, Sheikh Abdulaziz bin Raji. He's like 88, 86 years old. Okay? One of the scholars of Riyadh. Even though he's 88, Wallahi al-Azim, the guy comes walking to salawat, like all the salawat, 5 salawat, walking first person, always there. I've seen him myself many times. Ajib, the quwwah he has. This energy, and where does it come from? My father is now in his 60s. He's almost like very weak. But again, I'm not saying that my father is less pious, but I'm saying like certain times, Ahlul Ta'at, these people, they have been worshipping Allah so much that the quwwah of the badan always stays. لا سيما فيما يتعلق when it comes to ta'at. I have seen certain mashayikh, I went to them and read to them. When you keep them by themselves, they're so weak. If you tell them to do some dars or something, they get so energetic. This is the tawfiq that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives. And certain people, to do every single sin, they have a lot of what's called energy. But when it comes to reading Quran 1 hour, 2 hours, they can't, they're struggling, Understand? What's it called? بهذا خاتمة الرسالة. ومن يسر لهذا فإنه من الدين على هدى ومن الرحمة على رجاء وفقنا الله وإياك إلى سبيله الأقوم بمنه الجزيل الأقدم وجلاله العلي الأكرم. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد والسلام على من قرأ علينا السلام ولا ينال سلام الله الضالين. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.